Welcome to Amanda Hall Psychic here on A1R Psychic Radio, here on Moonstruck TV. It's a magical time of the year as we head towards Christmas, but let's sort of get a few other things out of the road before we really kick the show off. It's been a tragic week around the world, particularly with the earthquake and the loss of life we've had in New Zealand at Mount White, I think it was, in the last couple of days. And look, our hearts go out to those families that have lost people and people that are still missing and uncertain of what the future brings with that. We really do sympathise and empathise with those families, and probably even more so as we head towards Christmas. Here in Australia, for those of you that have been following our news here, we're into I think it's probably our 6th or 7th week of massive bushfires around the country. It is getting quite critical here now. You know, there's so many fires around Australia burning in a massive amount, over 100 fires at the last count, and doesn't seem to be any end in sight. So please spare a thought for those that are battling the bushfires, for those people that have lost their homes. Luckily, so far, we've only had a couple of losses of life. You know, any loss of life is too many. But, you know, our hearts and our prayers do go out for them. And it's interesting because lots of people that I've been speaking to during the week say to me, oh, I'm praying for rain, I'm praying for rain. But one of my Indigenous friends said to me the other day, I wish everybody'd stop praying for rain. And I sort of was a bit taken back by that. And he said, you know what happened last time everybody prayed for rain? He said, we had that much that we had floods and people drowned and lost property in the floods. He said, let's just let nature take its course. It will rain. You know, we don't know when, but it will rain. And, you know, we just want it to be normal, natural sort of weather events, not, you know, let's stop sort of creating things that aren't mad, you know, that are man-made, and sort of praying for things that maybe is going to bring a little bit too much and a little bit too much in the excesses. So let's move the show along to Christmas now, because I think it's a very magical time of the year, and it's a time of the year where I think we should all really understand the essence of Christmas. It's not always about the gifts that you receive or the things under the Christmas tree. I think it's more about being kind to each other and enjoying the time with people that we mightn't have had a lot of time to catch up with during the year. It's a magical time of the year in that way, that I think it's a time to be sort of positive, to be thankful, to look forward to what we've got coming up in our lives, and to just be grateful, I think, that we're alive and breathing and that we're all still relatively healthy. You know, as we get older, we all have a few more aches and pains and creaks, and the body doesn't cooperate quite the way it did when you're in your early 20s. But that's okay. We're still here and we're still got something positive to contribute to this amazing planet of ours. So this week I want to feature the Secrets of Tarot card of the week, which is the Devil. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, Amanda, this is a really negative card to have coming out at this very positive, festive time of the year. It can be negative, but it can also be the opportunity to remove things from our lives that aren't so positive, like jealousy and trouble. Now, many of us have that throughout our lives, whether it's our professional lives, from our family and friends, or just people that we work with or are close to, quite often are jealous of our achievements. So this is the opportunity to remove that from our lives, jealousy or trouble, able to break the chains that have been holding you back or binding you. Now, this is a really important concept, because many of us put restrictions or limitations on ourselves and say, oh, I can't do this because of that, or this can't happen because of this. Instead of turning around and trying to find a positive way of saying, okay, I haven't got a solution at this moment, but I'm working on it. I'm not going to be chained to the situation. I'm not going to allow it to dominate me and control the direction of my life. I still have choices. I just haven't found the best solution yet. So I actually see this card as being very positive. And, you know, if you look very closely at the card, you'll see the chains are very loosely around their neck. They're not actually holding them. They could actually slip it off over their neck and be done with the chain. So that's why I look at it as, you know, we are able to break the chains or remove the chains that are holding us back. So in lots of ways, the Devil card is a positive card to come out, because it's telling us that we can remove anything negative that has been holding us back, or any restrictions that are in our lives. So I'm going to say to you that's a very positive card. So the card that we're featuring is from the Secrets of Tarot set. This was the original Secrets of Tarot that came out a couple of years ago. This is our first one. We have 2 out in the marketplace. So if you need one, why don't you head to my website, www.amandahallpsychic.com.au, and you'll find them all there. So I want to now quickly go to our little trip around the universe. Now, before we get into too much, we need to talk about the full moon in Sagittarius. The full moon's not in Sagittarius, the sun's in Sagittarius. So that means the full moon is actually in Gemini. Now, it's going to be December 12th, no matter where you are in the world, is when the full moon is at its fullest. And it's going to go for 2 days. So you're going to need to be aware from any time now, and I think anything from now on in, be aware that your emotions might be all over the place. You might be a little bit emotional. You might be sort of a bit scattered in the things that you're thinking about. And it seems to be a time, if you understand the Gemini energy is the click of the fingers and changing our mind very quickly. It's asking us to be flexible. So when the full moon is in Gemini, it's asking us to be flexible with our emotions, with our thought patterns, and probably more importantly, with the people around us as we head into this very busy time of the year. And a lot of you are attending parties and functions and shopping and out and about and running around like a lunatic. And it's sort of time to sort of just stop, breathe, consider the people around you, and don't be in a bad temper if something doesn't quite go your way when you first wanted to. For many of us, it's a time when we peel off lots of emotions. We go through and say, flick, 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 flick. We don't need that anymore. And it's a time we have an emotional clear out. So I actually think it's a very positive time to have a full moon in Gemini. Now, the other planetary configurations that are really influencing each and every one of us at the moment is we have a plethora of planets sitting in Capricorn. But the three that I really want to focus on besides Jupiter is the fact that we have Venus, Saturn and Pluto all holding hands or conjunct together in Capricorn. So what this is asking us to do is to make sure the things that we are passionate about, the things that we love, the things that put a smile on our face are really what we want them to be. Let's be very careful that when we start to talk about things, whether it's climate change or whether it's that new outfit or that new present we want for Christmas, that we really have thought this through, that this is something that we really are passionate about, something that's going to enhance our lives or make us feel better. Because at the moment, there seems to be a lot of controversy out there, particularly when we look at world events of all the catastrophic things that are happening, weather events around the world. Some people are blaming it on climate change. Other people are saying, don't be so silly. And everybody seems to be pointing the finger at everybody else. But nobody's really trying to find solutions. Now, I think that's the important thing here. Yes, it's great to be passionate about things and to have a very strong or firm stand on something, but we need to also get up off the couch and do something about it and make our voices heard. And, you know, if you're really passionate about that, you believe that climate change is causing all these weather events, then write to your local politician and say, hey, listen to me. This is what I think. What are you going to do about it? We all need to collectively, as a group of people, start to get together, get some class actions together. You know, one little voice holding hands with another little voice and another little voice and another little voice is what makes changes in the world. So, you know, I'm a firm believer in climate change, and I truly do believe that a lot of the tragic weather events that are happening around the world are a direct link to that. And not just because I believe in that, but I also believe in it from an astrological point of view, because I also am aware of where the planets are. And I know we have the planet Uranus sitting in Taurus at the moment, going retrograde or backwards. Now, Uranus is the planet of the unusual and the unexpected, sitting in an earth sign. So it's saying I'm creating havoc with the earth. And with that making aspects back to the stuff in Capricorn, it's saying it's time now that we all have to work together to find solutions. And we have to find solutions on a global level. We have to transform. We have to look at the old ways of doing things are not working anymore, and we have to find new solutions moving forward. So on a very logical, practical, astrological level, I can see why the globe is in such a state. And this comes right across the board to all the political arenas and, you know, politicians ignoring things and sort of going about things in their own way as if they haven't got, you know, that they're not switching on and listening to what the public's saying because they're so far removed from real reality. So these sort of things are going to come back to bite them. So it doesn't matter where you live in the world, who you vote for. I think everybody has an important opinion on this at the moment, and we need to be able to put our message across and stand up and be counted on these things. So we're going to quickly sort of talk about candles of the week. So I've pulled out the Sagittarian candle because it is the Sagittarian or the Christmas time of the year. And I think it's a very important time of the year that we need to sort of acknowledge that and bring in some positivity. For those of you that work with the full moon candle, yes, we would have been burning our full moon candle now for a couple of days. I always like to work with 3 days on the approach before the full moon. So we're already 1 day into that. We're into the second day of the 3-day approach of the full moon. Then I burn it for 2 days for the full moon and then 3 days on the departure. So I'm going to say to you, we've still got another 5 or 6 days. There's a burning the full moon candle of releasing anything that we no longer want in our lives. So maybe we might release a few politicians while we're having our little full moon ceremony this year. That might be a great idea, mightn't it? Okay, so for those of you that might want a gift box that you see here, I've made it up with a full moon candle. I've made it up with a fire sign candle and a passion candle, just to show you that you can choose any candles from our 28 now range and to be able to make up a box that uniquely suits you. They're wonderful little candles. They burn for about 15 hours. I quite often work with these, in my limited space that I have, even though I have candles everywhere. But I like to sort of burn, a full moon candle and the energy of the full moon or the new moon at the same time. And quite often these are the ones that I burn. Because they are so small, I can make it that I use just one of these little mini candles for the duration of the 7 days of the full moon. And then I'm able to sort of, say, well, that candle's finished and I've just absorbed that energy for that month. So anyway, we're going to sort of head now and take our first caller. And it's Kiana in Campsie in Quaker City in Ohio. Are you there, Kiana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a question for me, sweetheart?
I would just like to know, what my situation with my baby's father, how that's going to turn out.
Okay. So you want to know about your baby's father, whether there's going to be any sort of change in the connection there?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you share with me your first name, sweetie? Is it Campsie, is it?
Campsie.
Okay, sweetheart. All right. Just so that I'm tuning into the right person. It's really interesting, the energy that they're sharing with me about your baby's father is because I don't know that he's emotionally ready to step up to the plate yet. Is that what you've been finding, that sort of, 1 minute he's there and then the next minute he's sort of disappeared again? He's sort of not living up to what he told you yesterday, and sort of, this leaves you very confused at what role he's going to play, or is he going to be a part of your life? Is that how you're finding him, sweetie?
Yeah.
Darling, look, I want to sort of say to you, cut him a bit of slack, but at the same time I want to get him and give him a good shake, because you can't be expected to do all this by yourself. I mean, he's either got to turn around and make up his mind and say, okay, look, I'm fully committed. I'll do the very best that I can. We'll work together on this, or sort of say, look, I'm sorry, I can't do this, and get right out of the road. He can't have a foot in each camp, because that's not helping you be strong. Would it be fair to say that he could be frightened about all this, sort of overwhelmed with the responsibility?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so were you to a certain point, but you can't just sort of hand the baby over to someone else and say, oh, well, I can't do this, it's all too hard.
Yeah.
I know you might, we all think that at some stage or another. I mean, being a new mum is a very overwhelming experience, even if you have all the support under the sun. But, the fact that you've got a baby daddy here that sort of 1 minute he's there and he's fully supportive and the next minute he's sort of like he's disappeared again is not helping the situation. Darling, can I suggest to you that maybe you sort of focus on yourself and the baby, and that way then he mightn't feel as if he's being so pressurised to step up to the plate, that then he might then start to sort of gradually come back in a stronger way, in a more deliberate way, because he feels the pressure's off. I know it's going to be hard, and I know I'm asking a lot of you, but I know you're strong enough to do it, sweetheart. And I feel by doing this, I think we can turn this situation around. As hard as it is, and as much as you sort of want to yell and scream at him and say, why aren't you here to help me? I think if you can sort of turn around and sort of be a little bit aloof and sort of almost in a sense push him away, like you're not sharing anything with him unless he asks. That might then be the one thing that's going, oh, I don't want that. I want my baby. Why is she pushing me away? Sort of like he'll start to sort of realise that, hang on a minute, I do have some ownership of this baby and I really want to be a part of the baby's life. Look, I do feel longer term wise, I do think the two of you will find a way forward with this. I'm just not sure that it's going to be a family unit, though. I'm not sure that you and him are going to find the love that you were hoping for. So would that be a fair comment that, this hasn't been the greatest romance on the planet?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, darling, I think you've got to accept that now. Sometimes we're put together for whatever reason to make a most beautiful little soul and bring them into the world, and that's sort of all the relationship's meant to be. And I think if you can look at it on that level, you will then find more peace in your heart, and you'll find then you'll be able to overcome and overlook the baby daddy's shortcomings a bit more, because you're not expecting him to all of a sudden miraculously be the person that he should be. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll be able to put it into context. And I feel in time, open yourself up to sort of finding somebody who truly is your rightful match. I don't think it's the baby daddy. Anyway, sweetie, I hope that's helped you, Campsie, and I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Now, we're going to go to Lonnie in Thief River Falls in Minnesota. Are you there, Lonnie?
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart. Do you have a question for me?
I don't know what kind of questions I guess I'm allowed to ask.
Well, there must be something that's going on in your life that you'd like some guidance on, sweetheart.
Yeah. Basically, I just kind of wondering if my spirit guides try to contact me, how do I know?
Okay, if your spirit guides are trying to contact you. That's a really, really good question, Lonnie, because most of us sort of tend to sort of think of spirit guides as, lots of people have lots of different ideas, and this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying mine's right and everybody else is wrong. My personal opinion is that our spirit guides are usually passed over relatives. And the reasons why I feel that is because they have an emotional connection to us, that they sort of have a vested interest in us. If it's your grandmother that's been gone for 20 years, well, of course she's going to have more of an emotional connection to you than she is to a total stranger. So this is why I believe that our spirit guides are relatives. And a lot of people say, oh, no, I've got a Native American Indian, or I've got this, or I've got that. Look, I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm just saying in my experience, that's what I believe. And having worked with spirit for many, many years, they're the ones that come through to me at different times with messages for their loved ones. So, when they tell me that they're taking care of them or they're guiding them, or, I feel very connected to my great-great-granddaughter because she reminds me of me. And, you sort of think, wow, you didn't even meet her physically, personally, but you feel a connection. Isn't that marvellous? So for you, sweetheart, I'm sure there's a number of spirit guides around you. Now, how do you know when they're making connection with you? Look, there's many different ways. Look, lots of people say, oh, people, I've seen a feather and that reminds me of so-and-so, or it means such and such. If that's what works for you, that's fine. I don't think there's any hard and fast rules to say what works for me is necessarily going to work for you. What I can share with you is the things that I've noticed over my 40-odd years in this sort of work, and there's many different signs. Sometimes it can be as simple as a song coming on the radio and all of a sudden you'll get goosebumps and you'll think, wow, that really is the answer to a question that I had. Fancy that being in the words to that song that I'm singing along to. That's a connection from spirit. It can sometimes be the same sort of thing. Some lines jump out at a television show that you're watching and you sort of think, wow, there's the answer to, what I was worrying about. Or the lights will flicker. Or you just get a feeling, or you can smell something. You smell perfume and then you go sniff, 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 and there's nothing there. And you think, well, did I imagine that? No, you didn't. Sometimes we see things out of the corner of our eye and we have a look for a second or a third time, nothing there. But again, these are all spirit connections. So spirit sort of tries to get our attention in many different ways. And it's not always something that we can turn around and say, oh, gee, you're not going to miss that. And I think as humans, we're all looking for it in that way, that it's like it's going to be a banner in the sky that I can't miss. Quite often it's very subtle. It's something that we have to sort of say, whoa, hang on a minute, that caught my attention. I wonder if that was a message or a sign. And once you start to be aware of that, you'll notice it happening more and more. For me, quite often, it's a lot of times, you know, I could be out driving in the car and I know the street sign says Smith Street, but it might say beach on there. And I look again, it still says Smith Street, but yet in my mind's eye, it said beach. So if that was to happen, I would then take notice of why did I see the word beach? What is the meaning behind that? What does that mean to me personally? And that's how I tend to look at things from spirit. I mean, there's lots of different things that I can say to you. Again, for me personally, I usually find when I blow, you know, half a dozen light bulbs in the house in a matter of a couple of days, I know that spirit's sort of quite active and what sort of message are they trying to share with me, good, bad or indifferent. You know, yes, you can turn around and say that's coincidence or your light bulbs blew at the same time because you replaced them all at the same time. But that's a little bit too coincidental to me. It's sort of like, you know, we might have one or two, but if you have six, that's, you know, who's trying to get a message to you. And, you know, people used to say to me, you know, I'd get up in the morning and all my photographs on the sideboard would be moved. And, you know, they might be people that are quite anal about them all being in a certain position. Again, that spirit just sort of showing you that they're there. It's interesting, though, because we as humans tend to think spirit's going to come down and give us this earth-shattering message that we can't live without. 9 times out of 10, all as they're trying to do is get you to acknowledge that they're there, to say, hi, I'm here, hello. And we tend to think that they've got to come through with this message all the time that we're going to need, you know, our life won't be the same if we don't understand it. So if you're not necessarily looking for that earth-shattering message, if you're just looking for that knowing and understanding that they're there with you, then that's the best thing. And that's the best way they can make connection with you, because then they sort of feel that they are, that you know that they're there, that they're seeing everything that goes on in your day-to-day life, as mundane and as boring as it might be, but that's important to them because that's you. Sometimes if it's really important, they'll wake you at 2 o'clock in the morning and, you know, you'll wake up from a deep sleep and you'll remember the dream that you were having, or you'll have a feeling. If that happens, can I suggest get out of bed and write it down, because that is something that they're really trying to get your attention for. But 9 times out of 10, it's just to say hello. I know you've got quite a bit of spirit activity around you. And I think the most important thing for you, Lonnie, is if you have something that you really, really, really need an answer to, say you want to know, should I change my job? Then I would suggest before you go to sleep of a night, ask the question out loud and ask them to put the answer into your mind first thing in the morning upon waking. You know, give them definite guidelines. Should I change my job? Yes or no? Give them something, you know, as simple as a yes or no answer. So then first thing in the morning when you wake up, the first thing that comes into your mind will be the answer to that question. That's how we train them or organise them to work with us. And that's, you know, something that we can all do, because they like to know when that they can be of service or when they can be of help. So at times like that, if we've got issues, if we do it that way, that helps them know that, okay, I don't have to wake her up at 2 o'clock in the morning. She's going to ask me a question before she goes to sleep, or she's going to have a conversation with me before she goes to sleep. And I suggest always out aloud, because they're not allowed to read our minds, so that they definitely know then what you need help with. And then they're able to give you sort of answers. But once you start to establish that connection with them, Lonnie, like that by, you know, simple things, you know, sort of like, should I go grocery shopping tomorrow? Yes or no? You know, you can give them lots of different questions. Then they start to be able to sort of, it builds up their strength or their energy on the other side, so that then they can come through in other ways. Then they can start with the smells or the moving of the pictures, or, you know, giving you an answer in a song or whatever the case may be. So I hope that's helped you and answered that question for you, Lonnie.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Have a very Merry Christmas, sweetheart. We've come to the end of the show again. So again, I want to reiterate with you that this is a very, very magical, special time of the year. Please remember those that are lost. Have your family traditions. Set some new traditions. I spoke about last week on the show that I always have a spare spot at my Christmas table for those that have departed, and that's been something I've been doing for a very, very long time. I'm sure the chair's getting a little bit crowded now because over the years I've lost quite a few family members. But it's just my way of acknowledging the fact that they are still here, they're still with us, they're still important, they're still special. And we have a family tradition of talking about something funny or something that we remember from our dearly departed over Christmas lunch as a way of making them feel included and special and still part of the family. So why don't you share with us here at A1R Psychic Radio some of your family traditions over Christmas? We'd love to hear from you. So until next week, be kind to each other, enjoy this magical time of the year, and don't forget it's a magical full moon in Gemini this year, so make sure that you do a lot of releasing and letting go of things. But until next time, I hope you're kind to each other, and let's keep Wellington, New Zealand and Australia in our prayers, and every other place around the world that's going through some sort of trauma or weather event at the moment. Until next week, Merry Christmas.